The final battle had come. The rebel forces, larger and fiercer than before, surrounded the palace of Zelgar Prime. The air was thick with tension and the roar of engines. Princess Zaljara stood beside Mason Reed on the palace balcony. Below them, the city prepared for the fight of its life. "We have come far," Zaljara said quietly. "I never thought this day would come." Mason smiled. "Neither did I. But we're ready." The rebels attacked with all their might, but Mason and Zaljara led their forces with courage and unity. Soldiers from Earth and the Thalari Empire fought side by side, their teamwork stronger than any enemy. Mason's Earth tactics combined with Zaljara's warrior skills turned the tide. The rebels, though fierce, could not break their defense. In the heat of battle, Mason saw Zaljara face danger without fear. She moved like a true queen, protecting her people and fighting for peace. When the dust settled, the rebels were defeated. The palace stood strong, and the alliance had survived its greatest test. Exhausted but victorious, Mason and Zaljara stood before their people. The crowd cheered, their voices united in hope. Zaljara spoke. "This victory is not just ours, it belongs to every person who believes in peace." Mason took her hand. "We will build a future together, one where humans and Thalari live as friends, not enemies." The Galactic Coalition leaders promised support to help heal the wounds of war and to build a new era. In the days that followed, Mason and Zaljara worked to unite their worlds. Old grudges slowly faded as people saw the strength of their bond. The princess, once angry and proud, found joy in the partnership she had once feared. Mason learned the beauty of Thalari culture and the power of hope. Together, they proved that even the most unlikely unions could change the fate of galaxies. Their story was a promise that peace, trust, and love could grow, even in the darkest times. And so, under the twin suns of Zelgar Prime, a new chapter began. The morning sun rose over Zelgar Prime, painting the sky with soft pink and gold. The palace was alive with preparations. Servants bustled through the halls, hanging decorations, and preparing for the wedding ceremony that would unite two very different worlds. Princess Zaljara stood before a tall mirror in her chamber. She wore the traditional Thalari bridal gown, a shining silver robe embroidered with glowing blue patterns. Her usual fierce expression softened as she looked at herself. Today, she was not just a princess but a future wife. Her heart raced. Was she ready for this? Could she trust Mason with her life and her people? Across the palace, Mason adjusted his uniform. It was unlike his usual battle gear, decorated with symbols from Earth and Zelgar Prime. His nerves tingled, but his resolve was steady. He remembered the journey that brought him here, from a simple soldier to a partner of a royal princess. The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall. The Galactic Coalition leaders, Thalari nobles, and representatives from many worlds filled the seats. The air was thick with anticipation. When Mason stepped forward, many eyes were on him, some skeptical, others curious. Then, Zaljara entered, her gaze locking with Mason's. For the first time, they saw each other not as opponents, but as equals. The high priest began the ceremony, speaking in the ancient Thalari tongue. Mason and Zaljara repeated the vows, promises of loyalty, respect, and unity. When the final words were spoken, the hall erupted in applause. But celebration was short-lived. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the palace. Dust and smoke filled the air. Guards rushed to their positions. Zaljara grabbed Mason's arm. "They're attacking," she shouted. The enemy had come to stop the wedding, to break the bond between human and Thalari. Mason and Zaljara moved quickly. Together, they fought through the chaos side by side. Their teamwork was seamless. Mason's quick thinking and Zaljara's warrior skills saved many lives that day. After the fight, the leaders declared the wedding official, a symbol of peace and hope for the galaxy. Zaljara looked at Mason, a new respect shining in her eyes. "We are stronger together," she said quietly. Mason smiled back. "And we will face whatever comes next, together." The palace was quiet again after the attack. The halls that had echoed with battle cries now held a calm peace. But beneath the surface, tension still simmered. The wedding of Mason Reed and Princess Zaljara was not just a union of two people. It was a symbol, a promise to the galaxy that old rivalries could end and new alliances could begin. The Galactic Coalition leaders gathered in the council room. They discussed the future of the Thalari Empire and Earth, now linked by marriage. Some leaders were hopeful. They believed Mason and Zaljara could bring lasting peace. Others were doubtful. They feared that ancient grudges would break the fragile bond. In the palace, Mason and Zaljara worked together. They met with diplomats, learned about each other's cultures, and planned ways to unite their people. It was not easy. Zaljara found Earth customs strange and confusing. Mason struggled with the formal ways of the Thalari court. But they laughed at their mistakes and kept trying. One day, Zaljara took Mason to the palace gardens. The flowers there were unlike any on Earth, glowing softly in the twilight. "This is where I come to think," she said quietly. Mason smiled. "It's beautiful." Zaljara looked at him. "We have a long road ahead." "Yes," Mason agreed. "But we have each other." As days passed, the people of the Thalari Empire began to accept Mason. He was no longer just a human soldier. He was a symbol of hope. Even some of the most powerful nobles started to see that the old ways could change. But danger was still close. Rumors spread of rebels who wanted to tear the alliance apart. One night, Mason and Zaljara were warned of a secret meeting of these rebels. They decided to go together, hoping to find a way to stop the violence before it began. In the dark shadows of the palace, they listened to the rebels' plans. The threat was real and dangerous, but Mason and Zaljara were ready. They would face this new enemy, not as princess and soldier, but as partners. Together they returned to the palace, knowing their greatest challenge was just beginning. The palace was quieter now, but the shadows grew longer and darker. Mason and Princess Zaljara knew the rebels were real and dangerous. Their secret meeting had revealed more than just angry words. It showed a plan to overthrow the new alliance and return the galaxy to old conflicts. Zaljara's advisors warned her to stay inside the palace, but she refused. "I am not a child," she said firmly. "If we are to protect our people, we must face this together." Mason nodded. "We won't run. We'll stand and fight." Together they worked to uncover the rebels' plans. They spoke with palace guards, diplomats, and even some nobles who quietly supported peace. Slowly, they built a picture of the rebellion, where they met, their leaders, and their next moves. One evening, Mason and Zaljara rode fast through the city streets heading toward a secret rebel hideout. They moved carefully, knowing that one wrong step could mean disaster. When they arrived, they found the rebels preparing weapons and calling for followers. The rebel leader, a tall, fierce Thalari noble named Varen, stepped forward. "You think this marriage will change anything?" Varen spat. "The galaxy remembers old wounds. It will never trust humans." Zaljara stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "It is time to build new bridges, not burn old ones. We offer peace, but if you choose war, we will stop you." Mason stood beside her, ready to protect the princess. Varen sneered. "Then you will die trying." The rebels attacked, and a fierce battle erupted in the dark streets. Mason fought with skill, protecting Zaljara as she used her warrior training to hold the line. Despite being outnumbered, Mason and Zaljara fought with a unity that surprised their enemies. They moved as one, covering each other's weaknesses. The rebels were forced to retreat, but not before warning of a larger force coming soon. Breathing heavily, Zaljara turned to Mason. "This is only the beginning." Mason nodded. "Then we fight. Together." Back in the palace, the leaders of the Galactic Coalition praised their bravery but warned that the rebellion would not give up easily. Mason and Zaljara spent long nights planning defenses, strengthening alliances and preparing their people for what was to come. Though the battle was hard, their bond grew stronger. They learned to trust each other fully, not just as rulers but as partners. The galaxy watched, waiting to see if this unlikely union could survive the coming storm. The bright sun of Zelgar Prime shone over the Great Hall where the Galactic Coalition's new members gathered. Humans, aliens, and many other species stood side by side. It was the first time Earth was part of this grand alliance. But not everyone was happy to see humans here. Princess Zaljara, the proud and fierce daughter of the Thalari Empire, looked down at the crowd. The Thalari were known across many star systems for their strict rules and powerful warriors. Zaljara was no different. She was strong, fast, and very confident. But she did not like humans. To her, they were weak and unimportant. Today, the princess wanted to make a point. She wanted to show everyone that humans were not worthy of respect. So she made a bold announcement. "I challenge one human to a contest of honor," she declared, her voice loud and clear. The crowd gasped. No one expected the princess to pick a human. The rules were simple, a test of strength and skill. If the human lost, they would admit their weakness publicly. If the princess lost, she would accept the human as an equal. The humans were nervous. They did not know what to expect. The Galactic Coalition officials quickly chose someone at random. That person was Staff Sergeant Mason Reed. Mason was surprised. He was not a diplomat or a politician, just a soldier from Earth. He had trained hard but never thought he would face an alien princess in a challenge. The crowd watched as Mason stepped forward. He was calm, but alert. Zaljara smirked. Sure, she would win easily. The contest began with a test of agility. The princess moved like lightning, but Mason used his training and quick thinking. He dodged her attacks and scored points. Next was strength. Zaljara lifted heavy weights with ease. Mason struggled but never gave up. His determination impressed some in the crowd. Finally came the test of strategy. Mason surprised everyone by using the environment and the princess's own moves against her. Slowly but surely he gained the upper hand. When the contest ended, the judges announced the winner, Mason Reed. The crowd was silent. No one had expected this. Zaljara's face turned red with anger. How could a simple human beat her? She wanted to refuse the result, but the rules were clear. Mason looked at the princess. "I did my best," he said respectfully. "I hope we can learn from each other." The Galactic Coalition leaders whispered among themselves. The result meant more than just a contest. It was a challenge to old beliefs and customs. For Mason and Zaljara, this was only the beginning. Let me know if you want me to continue with part 2 or adjust anything. After Mason Reed's surprising win, the Great Hall on Zelgar Prime buzzed with whispers. No one had expected a human to beat Princess Zaljara, and now the galaxy's eyes were on them. But the real shock came when the Galactic Coalition's chief diplomat, Ambassador Ral Zin, stepped forward. He held an ancient book, the Thalari Codex, full of old laws and customs. "This contest is more than a game," he announced. "According to Thalari law, when a royal challenges a non-royal, the loser must marry the winner as a penalty." Gasps filled the room. The humans stared in disbelief. Mason looked at Zaljara, who was white with anger. "Marry me?" She spat. "This is ridiculous. No one forces the princess of the Thalari Empire to wed a human." But Ambassador Ral Zin was firm. "The law is clear. This is not a joke. It is an ancient rule, binding and unbreakable." Zaljara's advisors whispered urgently, and some even looked scared. The Thalari Empire was proud and strong, but no one wanted to risk breaking old laws. It could mean chaos or even war. Meanwhile, the Earth delegation protested. "We did not agree to this," their leader said. "Humans don't accept forced marriages, especially with alien royalty." But the coalition leaders reminded everyone of the delicate peace in the galaxy. If the Thalari law was ignored, it could start a war. No one wanted that. Mason stood quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. He had never imagined that winning a contest would lead to marriage, let alone with a princess from a powerful, alien empire. Zaljara stormed out of the hall. She refused to speak to anyone. To her, this was a humiliating trap set by her enemies to weaken her family and her people. That night, Mason sat alone in a small room. He thought about the impossible future ahead, a life with a proud alien princess who hated him. But he also felt a strange calm. He had always believed humans could survive anything. This was just another challenge. Back in the royal palace, Zaljara paced. She hated the idea of marrying a human. She hated that she had lost a bet that now controlled her life, but deep down, she knew she had no choice. The law was old and strong. The galaxy would watch every move. Maybe, she thought, this human isn't just lucky. Maybe he has something I don't understand yet. For now, the war of words and anger was only beginning. The news spread fast. Earth and the Thalari Empire would soon be connected by a strange and powerful bond. The galaxy waited to see what would happen next. The morning light filled the royal palace of the Thalari Empire, but inside Princess Zaljara was far from peaceful. Her anger burned hotter than the twin suns outside. The idea of marrying a human, a primitive, a soldier from Earth, was an insult she could not accept. She paced back and forth in her chambers, her hands clenched into fists. How could I lose to him? She muttered. He is weak, slow, nothing like a real warrior. Her advisors tried to calm her, but she ignored them. I will never marry that human, she said, her voice sharp and cold. Meanwhile, in a small, simple room far from the royal chambers, Mason Reed woke to a new and strange world. The palace was unlike anything on Earth. Shining walls, strange symbols, and quiet halls full of secrets. He was alone, but he was not scared. Mason had faced tough situations before. He pulled on his uniform and prepared for the day ahead. Soon, a guard came to escort him to meet the princess. When Mason entered Zaljara's chamber, she was sitting on a low throne, arms crossed and eyes blazing. Why are you here? She demanded. To meet you, princess, Mason said calmly, holding out his hand. Zaljara stared at the hand, then looked back at Mason's face. He did not look afraid or angry. Instead, he smiled, a small, friendly smile. It's strange, she thought. Why does he smile when I want to shout? Do you really believe humans are so weak? Mason asked quietly. I know we are different, but we survive by being strong inside, by working together, by never giving up. Zaljara's eyes narrowed. You are a soldier. You fight with weapons and machines. I fight with my body and my mind. You do not belong here. Maybe not, Mason said, but I will learn your ways, and maybe you will learn ours. Zaljara rose from her throne. You are foolish to think you can survive here. Maybe, Mason said with a shrug. But I'm not afraid. That made the princess stop. No one had ever looked at her like that before. Days passed, and Mason began to learn the rules of the palace. He practiced the strange rituals and listened to endless speeches. Sometimes he made mistakes, but he always tried again. Zaljara watched him closely. He was different from the proud nobles she knew. He was honest, patient, and kind, even when she was harsh. Slowly, something changed between them. The princess started to respect Mason's strength, not just his muscles, but his heart. But she would never admit it out loud. One evening, while the stars shone brightly above Zelgar Prime, Mason caught Zaljara training alone. Without thinking, he joined her, copying her movements. She looked surprised but did not stop him. For the first time, they fought side by side. The royal palace on Zelgar Prime was never quiet, but lately danger whispered through the marble halls. Mason Reed had barely begun to understand the rules of the palace when trouble arrived. It started with strange warnings. Palace guards grew, tense, and rumors spread of enemies lurking in the shadows. Someone wanted Mason out of the way. One afternoon, as Mason walked through the palace gardens, a group of masked figures attacked him. They moved fast, their weapons sharp and deadly. But Mason was ready. Years of combat training from Earth kept him alert. He dodged their strikes, blocked attacks, and fought back fiercely. Just as he gained the upper hand, a swift shadow appeared. Beside him, Princess Zaljara. She fought with the grace and strength of a born warrior. Her blade flashed in the sunlight and her eyes burned with fierce determination. Together they defeated the attackers. Breathing hard, Zaljara looked at Mason, surprise clear in her eyes. "Why did you save me?" she asked. Mason shrugged. "Because I don't want to die," he said with a small smile. She scowled but felt a strange warmth inside. After the attack, the palace grew more dangerous. Mason was no longer just a guest. He was a target. Zaljara's enemies wanted to stop this union before it could start. The princess, who once saw Mason as a weak human, now found herself protecting him. She ordered her guards to watch over him day and night. In return, Mason asked Zaljara to teach him how to fight like the Thalari warriors. She agreed, though reluctantly. The training was hard. The Thalari style was unlike anything Mason had learned before. It was fast, precise, and graceful, a dance of power and skill. Zaljara pushed him to his limits. She was strict and sometimes harsh, but Mason never complained. One day, during a sparring session, Mason landed a clever move that caught her off guard. For a moment, Zaljara laughed, a rare sound from the usually serious princess. "Not bad for a human," she admitted. "Thanks," Mason said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Their fights became a game of respect and challenge. Each learned from the other. Mason grew stronger and Zaljara learned to trust him more. But danger still loomed. In the shadows, powerful nobles whispered plots to break the princess's promise and stop the marriage. The Galactic Coalition watched silently, waiting to see if the ancient law would bring peace or war. For Mason and Zaljara, every day was a battle, not just against enemies, but against the doubts and fears inside themselves. Yet, as they trained and fought side by side, something unexpected began to grow, a bond stronger than any law or tradition. "Would you like me to keep going with part 5? You said, part 500 words ka lekho or interesting hona chahiye. Or third-person style ma lekhni hai. Or simple basic English ka ChatGPT said, here's part 5, about 500 words, in simple and engaging third-person style. Part 5, The Trials of Unity. The day of the trials arrived. These were ancient tests designed by the Thalari Empire to prove the strength and unity of any royal couple. Without passing them, Mason and Princess Zaljara could not be officially married. The trials were not easy. They tested mind, body, and spirit. Many before them had failed, and the galaxy watched closely, waiting to see if a human and an alien princess could truly become one. The first trial was the trial of endurance. Mason and Zaljara had to climb the cliffs of Zelgar Prime, steep, rocky, and dangerous. The princess moved like a shadow, sure and fast. Mason struggled at first, but used his earth training and never stopped. At the top, they caught their breath and looked out over the planet. Mason smiled. "We did it," he said. Zaljara nodded but didn't smile back. She was still angry inside but beginning to respect Mason's will. Next came the trial of wisdom. They faced puzzles and riddles set by ancient Thalari scholars. Zaljara was clever, but Mason surprised her by thinking differently, using ideas she had never considered. Together, they solved the riddles faster than expected. Their teamwork amazed the judges. The third trial was the trial of spirit. Here, Mason and Zaljara had to meditate in the sacred temple of light, seeking inner peace and connection. At first, Mason found it hard. The quiet was strange and his mind raced. But with Zaljara's help, he learned to calm himself and focus on their shared goal. Hours later, they emerged from the temple, calm and united. Finally came the trial of combat, the most feared. Mason and Zaljara had to fight together against trained warriors of the Empire. Their opponents were strong and fast, using weapons and tactics the humans had never seen. At first, Mason felt out of place, but Zaljara's training helped him move with skill. They fought side by side, covering each other's backs. Mason's earth combat experience and Zaljara's Thalari style blended perfectly. When they defeated their enemies, the crowd erupted in cheers. The trials were complete. The leaders of the Galactic Coalition and the Thalari Empire stood before them. The ancient law was clear. Mason and Zaljara had passed every test. The crowd waited for the princess's decision. Zaljara looked at Mason. She saw not a weak human but a strong partner, someone who respected her and fought for their future. With a slow nod, she said, "I accept." The crowd gasped and then cheered. The impossible was happening. Mason smiled, feeling hope for the first time since arriving on Zelgar Prime. But even with the trials behind them, danger still lurked. The old Thalari nobles would not give up easily. For now, Mason and Zaljara stood together, ready to face whatever came next, united. "Want me to continue with part 6? You said, part 6,500 words ka lekho or interesting huna chahiye, or third-person style ma lekhni ha, or simple basic English ka chat GPT said, here's part 6, around 500 words, simple and engaging, in third-person style. Part 6, the night before." The palace was quiet as night fell over Zelgar Prime. Soft moonlight spilled through tall windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Inside her chambers, Princess Zaljara sat alone, staring at the stars outside. Tomorrow was the day of their wedding, the day Mason Reed would become her husband. The thought still felt strange, like a dream she did not want to wake from. She thought about the journey so far, the bet, the challenge, the trials. She remembered Mason's calm smile and quiet strength. She admitted to herself, though she would never say it aloud, that he was different from anyone she had ever known. Yet fear and doubt filled her heart. Could she truly trust a human? Could they overcome the deep differences between their worlds? A soft knock came at her door. It was one of her closest advisors, but Zaljara waved him away. "I need time," she said softly. Later, Mason sat in his own room. He looked at a small gift he had made for the princess, a simple pendant from Earthstones. He hoped it would show her that he cared, that he wanted more than just a forced marriage. He thought about what Zaljara had said earlier, how she didn't want loyalty forced but wanted partnership. Mason wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing. He wanted honesty. He wanted to build something real. When the time came, Mason asked to see Zaljara. The guards hesitated but agreed. In her chambers, Mason found the princess, sitting quietly, looking tired but calm. "I don't want you to marry me because you have to," Mason said. "I want you to marry me because you want to." Zaljara looked at him, her eyes searching. "I don't know what I want yet," she admitted. "But I know this. You are not like anyone I expected. You are patient, kind, and strong in ways I did not believe." Mason smiled. "That's all I ask. We'll figure it out together." For a moment, silence wrapped the room. It was not awkward. It was full of possibility. Zaljara reached out and took Mason's hand. It was the first true touch between them, gentle but sure. The night passed slowly, filled with quiet, talks and soft laughter. For the first time, both felt something new, hope.